The constitutional showdown is here. The judiciary versus the Trump regime. So here's what went down. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0. Let me repeat that, 9-0 unanimous ruling that the Trump regime is to facilitate the return. They use that term, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, who the Trump regime kidnapped. He's a Maryland man. They kidnapped him and they disappeared him to a concentration camp in El Salvador. After the Supreme Court makes that 9-0 ruling, essentially affirming the district court's ruling, return Abrego Garcia, the district court then issues an order saying, do what the Supreme Court now said, which is what I said. I want to see you in court on Friday and let me know what you are doing to return Abrego Garcia and tell us what's happened to him, Trump regime. Where is he? By the way, is it Nayib Bukele, the authoritarian leader of El Salvador, coming to the United States next week? So this can be arranged, surely. What's going on here? So the Trump regime's DOJ responds, we need more time. The judge, the federal district court judge, Judge Zenna, says, no, I'm not giving you more. I'll give you 30 more minutes, basically. I'll give you a little bit more time, but tell me where Abrego Garcia is. The Trump regime says, impracticable. We can't do that. They show up in court, and Judge Zenas, in open court, rips the Department of Justice lawyer, and the Department of Justice's lawyer is like, actually, Judge, I don't really think the Supreme Court said what it said. You can't order us to do this. And Judge Zenas, the federal judge in Maryland's like, yes, I can. I read the order. It says facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. And it told you, be prepared to let me, the district court judge, know what the heck has happened to him. So tell me what has happened to him. To which the Department of Justice lawyer, Ensign, I think is his name, he's like, yeah, we're not going to tell you. I don't know. She's like, yes or no? Do you know where he is? Well, we don't. So you don't know where he is. You're not complying. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep a very short leash on this. I'm going to have you do status updates basically every day. I want to see you in court next Tuesday. She issues an order saying the federal government has failed to comply with the court order, with the Supreme Court order. So now we have this hearing on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast, Stephen Miller, one of the chief propagandists from the Trump regime, he makes a post and he says that the Supreme Court didn't do what the Supreme Court did. He said, actually, the Supreme Court basically recognized our Article 2 powers. The Supreme Court said we didn't have to do anything. And so it was a win for us. That's what Miller says. That's not what the Supreme Court did. So we have this showdown, right? Already there was a violation of the federal court order. We have the Trump regime not turning over the info. We have Nayib Bukele from El Salvador, the authoritarian leader, showing up. It's like adding insult to injury, showing up in Washington, D.C. He's going to do, I'm sure Trump will roll out the red carpet for him, treat him much better than Zelensky. And this is where we're at. So the question is, what's going to happen? Where's this Abrego Garcia? Is he alive right now? And what's happening? Harry, what do you make of all this? Remember, you and I, of course you remember, but all the viewers, we said you predicted this was going to happen. You also told people who were very worried based on what some of the headlines in the news were. You said, don't get too worried yet. Let's wait till we see the ruling. And you went against what a lot of the headlines were saying, big win for Trump. You said, give it a little bit of time. You were right in saying that. So tell us what happens next.
Yeah, man, oh man, is it an interesting one, because you're totally right, Ben. It's a showdown, but it's a showdown with, two gunslingers at high noon, unlike with Boasberg, say, where nevertheless he put on a clinic that Zinnis has really absorbed about really holding their feet to the fire and cross-examining them to get information and rejecting these claims of national security. This is one that's binary. Abrego Garcia is going to come home or he isn't going to come home. And the different ways in which they've tried to slip and slide aren't going to work here. So they're going to come in. We predicted this also, you and I, with some kind of dog-aided excuse. And she will, take a deep breath and give him another day, maybe give him another 2 days, tell him I'm about to hold you in contempt. She actually said today, you didn't comply with my orders, and we know it's true, right? Until Robert sent her that administrative stay a few hours before it was to expire. That order was standing, and they didn't do jack to try to comply with it. But now she knows, I really do think the landscape has changed. She knows that they've given her, as the Supreme Court, some real rope to run with, and they'll try to make these excuses, but she has ways to penetrate them. I'm not saying what's the, our secrets with El Salvador. I'm saying, what have you done so far? Who's asked? What have they said? What have they offered? And every single day, U.S. government, until when? Until he's home, you tell me, where is he? That's not a national security, classified matter. What you've done so far and what you're planning to do next. And the thing is, there's two things that are really different about this from in the past. One, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And I think she's not going to, like Boasberg, she's a dog with a bone, and that she's not going to give it up. And I think the higher courts, unless the U.S. is really willing to try to say, just to tell you, even the slightest detail would be a national security catastrophe. But then that brings us to the second point, because the doctrine is pretty strong here. You can't question the good faith of the executive, et cetera. But I think the gig's up for the administration on this one. Everybody understands it's just not a heavy lift to bring him back. This guy, we're paying him, as you said, to house these people in their torture chambers. We want him there. It just couldn't be, it just wouldn't be credible to the court. So they can keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, but it's going to come to shove. There's going to be matters of contempt. Maybe people have to be jailed or whatever. And, there's no third path here. He's coming home, or he isn't, unless, God forbid, they say that he is dead. So this is, I think, kind of the worst posture for the administration, to try to draw this line of, we won't say anything at all. And by the way, in the meantime, now every day they do that, they come across as, having done, you saw what Justice Sotomayor said, what the Fourth Circuit said, as unconscionable and being completely indifferent to it. It's a bad look. It keeps them from being able to make the sort of rhetorical claims that Trump wants to about getting murders off the street. It's going to be all Abrego Garcia until he's home or he isn't. And, they're in a hole, and the rule of holes is when, stop digging. So this, I think, is it's a showdown. You're right. But I think it's under circumstances that are optimal there's a clean victory one way or another. There's the Supreme Court behind her who knows what these rascals have been doing. The stakes are huge, in elementary justice terms. And there's no kind of, as they're doing with Boasberg, just sort of chewing it over and making it go away. He's coming home or he's not coming home, and she's not letting go until, the only thing that could happen is at some point the 5 Supreme Court justices say that's enough. But man, oh man, what a decision that would be. So I think this is set up in a terrible posture for the administration, a very good one for Zinnis. And if they're smart, they'll cut their losses sooner rather than later. But if they don't, and that's very possible with the likes of Steve Miller in the room, I don't see how they continue to get away with this indefinitely, which is what they need.
Yeah, that's why they're harping on to the language. Well, the Supreme Court said that you can't order us to effectuate, you have to facilitate, and facilitate kind of means that you shouldn't be this is basically what they're saying in layman's terms. Effectuates like being mean to us, like facilitates like, let's figure this out together. And federal judge Zinnis, you're like telling us this date, this deadline. That feels a little bit more like effectuate. Whereas facilitates like, just figure this out sometime. That's what the Trump regime is arguing, and they're hanging their hat on.
But they're not saying we won't. And if El Salvador eventually says, screw you, we'll go to war before we'll turn him over, but they're never going to say that. And then no one will believe the administration if they say that, right?
So we'll keep you all posted every step of the way. Make sure you all subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds Substack channel, and the Talking Feds podcast. It's where I get my legal news from. Harry, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Always a pleasure.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.